Welcome back, Mike Farrell Sports Talk. My name is Adam, and as always, Mike Farrell joins me again for another edition. Thanks for listening to us on the Believe Podcast Network. And if you're watching on YouTube, watching these two fine, handsome gentlemen that are Mike and myself, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And every time we do videos, it'll pop in your feed. Mike Farrell will be in your feed as well because he's here on the show. Make sure you bookmark his website, MikeFarrellSports.com. Mike, what's happening, my friend?
Yeah, nothing. I was looking at MikeFarrellSports.com actually because I'm looking at the Paul Chryst article as to why he shouldn't be fired.
Yeah. So for those who have been living under a rock, Wisconsin head coach Paul Chryst was let go. Sounds like there was a buyout negotiation that took place at some point, Mike. Maybe you have more insight on sort of the mechanics, but in a surprise move, you and I joked the week prior there's going to be a coach fired every week. And we joked about the names, right? Carl Dorwell, who actually ended up getting fired, by the way. Brian Harson. I threw out there Jeff Scott. I didn't have Paul Chryst on my bingo card. I don't know if anybody did, but he is now looking, maybe he's playing bingo because he's not coaching football.
This is changing all the rules. So we knew Darrell would probably be next, and in succession, as you mentioned, Frost and Herm and Collins, those were all expected. And then Paul Chryst gets announced that he's been fired. And negotiation of the buyout, honestly, this is a Wisconsin grad. This is a guy who loves Wisconsin. This is a guy who left Pitt in a millisecond to take the Wisconsin job when it came open. I think he's a nice enough guy to actually negotiate the buyout down to try to help Wisconsin, which is part of the reason why I think this is just an awful firing. I mean, 43-8 in Big Ten play, 67-26 overall, 3 New Year's Six bowl games in 6 seasons. I don't really count COVID. 9 or more games in 5 out of 6. I mean, we could be talking about the nice Bo Pelini here. Be careful what you wish for. So the talk is that Jim Leonhard, defensive coordinator, is being looked at by a lot of schools as far as the next head coach, but there was no way on earth that he was locked in to be the next head coach someplace. He was mentioned, of course, in different circles in regards to Arizona State, in regards to Georgia Tech, Colorado, Nebraska, yes. I don't think he was locked to be the next guy, but a lot of people have this theory that he was going to be the Nebraska coach, so they didn't want to lose him, so they got rid of Chryst. But you just don't know what you're getting. He's never run a program. We're starting to see a little bit of what a guy who's never run a program struggles with Notre Dame, with Oklahoma. Great coordinators taking the next step. It's sometimes a lot for him. So I think it's ridiculous. So now what I was looking at, who's next? We've run out of the common names, but this does not bode well for Steve Sarkisian. This does not bode well for Jimbo Fisher. This does not bode well for anybody who's even on a warm seat, because it's saying, we're willing to cut ties so quickly with somebody who's been successful to win now, because the TV money is so big, because the pressure is on, because we have to take the next step in our development, blah, blah, blah. And Jimbo, he's got an $85 million buyout. Sark has Arch Manning. Nobody's safe now. Nick Saban's safe. Jim Harbaugh's safe. Those guys are safe. But, Ryan Day, Dabo, on and on. But after this weekend, could we be looking at Nick Saban beating Texas A&M 50-10 and Jimbo Fisher being fired? We could. Now anything can happen.
Let me throw out some schools. You tell me where these rank on I'm crazy meter. What do you think about Oklahoma? Is Brent Venables okay? Is he, in the world of no one's safe anymore? Venables is off to a really rough start. They get just curb stomped by TCU. Is Venables safe?
Safe for now. I don't think we're at the point yet where we're firing coaches 5 games into their tenure. Chryst was 5 games into this season. Had been around for a while. Willie Taggart didn't make it more than a season and a half, pretty much, at Florida State. But people aren't happy with that. His seat's warm. I think his seat was warm when he sat down. I think most coaches' seats are warm. So crazy meter, would that be crazy if he, ended up getting fired? not after this weekend, but after this season, it would be crazy. It would be a 10. But again, they're playing Texas. Texas curb stomps them. There's going to be a whole lot of people that are saying this was a horrible hire. This is not the fit, blah, blah, blah. And he's going to be on from a warm seat, which is warmed up since the loss to TCU, to a very, very hot seat.
Your close personal friend, Mr. Mike Norvell, coming off a loss to Wake Forest at Florida State.
It would be an 8.
I love setting you up for these, Mike. I love setting you up. I can see the pain on your face. I love it.
It'd be an 8. It'd be crazy. He got off to a 4-0 start, and I said earlier, obviously, as everybody knows who follows me on Twitter, I said that I couldn't find 6 wins in this schedule for them, and I thought he'd be fired if he had a 6-6 season. And of course, everybody was in my mentions after he started off 4-0 and calling me every name in the book and telling me to die. Now he's lost a game, and he's got NC State and Clemson coming up. That could be 2 more losses. They could be 4-3, and then all that momentum is out the window. And then you look for 2 more wins on the schedule. You assume Georgia Tech's a win. You could assume Louisiana's a win. And then you got toss-up with Miami, Syracuse, and Florida. Now, in this world of, what have you done for me lately? Florida State fans will laugh and say, we're not going to lose to Miami. They lost to Middle Tennessee State. Well, you could. We're not going to lose to Georgia Tech. They fired their coach. Well, Pitt just did. We're not going to lose to Florida. Anthony Richardson sucks. Well, they almost beat Tennessee, and they beat a pretty good Utah team. So, he could still finish 6-6. But let's take things one game at a time. If he gets out of this gauntlet of 3 games with 1 win over either NC State or Clemson now left, he's in good shape. But I think 7-5 is probably the low bar this season, and it would be an 8. I think it'd be crazy to fire him at this point.
I'll give you a layup on this one then. Brian Harson, obviously Auburn's head coach. Their next 4 games: at Georgia, at Ole Miss, home Arkansas, at Mississippi State.
So he's the one who's going to get fired next week. That's going to happen. It just is. They're going to get killed by Georgia. Georgia had their struggle with Missouri on the road. Kirby Smart now has selling points and coaching points and telling them not to get comfortable, and everybody's questioning you. You're no longer number 1 in the country. Now you're number 2. People think Alabama is better. All of that speaks to me of a just dominating victory. They're favored by 30. If they lose by 30 or more, then I think Brian Harson will be fired. So that would be a 0.5 on the crazy meter. There's nothing crazy about that at all. He's going to be fired after this weekend.
Well, let's get back to Wisconsin for a second. So if I'm hearing you correctly, in your what you're hearing, what you kind of observe here, Paul Chryst is not at Wisconsin, more so because Jim Leonhard is. Is that sort of the way to think about what went down? Or are there things on the field, off the field? I mean, Wisconsin, I think they're 2-3 this year so far. Are there things on the field that administration you think thinks there's a backslide and there's other stuff, or is it simply that, hey, we have Jim Leonhard here, we don't want to lose him, so you got to go, buddy?
No, there's some things. I mean, on the backslide, the Graham Mertz was never developed, and Paul Chryst, if you remember, he looks like an offensive lineman, right? You look at Brett Bielema and you're like, this guy must have been an offensive lineman. Well, he's a defensive coach. Paul Chryst, you look at him and you're like, oh, Wisconsin, great fit, kind of a chubby guy. Offensive line he's a quarterback. Development of Graham Mertz has not happened. But the big thing that really is upsetting people is the lack of development of the offensive line over the last couple of years. They haven't been typical Wisconsin. They won 9 games last year, which was good, but they had some losses that shouldn't have occurred. They aren't out muscling people. They aren't out powering people. To that point, the strength of the team is the defense, which, Leonhard gets all the credit for. And I think that combination of things, when Braylon Allen rushes for 2 yards on 8 carries and your offensive line just looks garbage from the get-go, and then I'm talking like in wins. They didn't look good, the offensive line against Illinois State. They certainly didn't look good against Washington State when they were upset there. They didn't look good against New Mexico State. They won 66-7, and their offensive line still looked like garbage. And they've got a lot of highly recruited guys on that offensive line that are not developing. So that's what it is. It's like, okay, a program's not developing in this direction. This guy's our coach, supposed to be, the strength of his development, supposed to be offense. He's not doing the job. Leonard is. Let's keep him before we lose him. So I think that's the case there. I still think it's ridiculous. And I think people are ridiculous, and not just administrators. Administrators are stupid. I mean, I wrote an article yesterday about how the Big Ten, Trev Alberts is a smart guy. He's supposed to be a smart guy. He's the athletic director of Nebraska. There's no way on earth Scott Frost should have got another season, ever. But he did. And now they're, in this purgatory of what's next for Nebraska. And they lost they ended up firing him in September. They could have waited till October. They lost millions and millions of dollars doing that. It's just everything about this has been a clown show. Michigan State, Mel Tucker gets $95 million guaranteed after one good season just because LSU wanted to hire him as a coach. So now he's guaranteed with that $95 million. He's making $9.5 million a year. That team sucks. They're 2-3. They just lost to Maryland. He could be a 5-7, almost $10 million coach, or even 4-8. They're just not looking good. And this is dumb. So the reason I say people are dumb is because everybody at Oklahoma thought that Brent Venables was a better hire and he's going to do better. Because Lincoln Riley, the problem with Lincoln Riley was, he developed the offense, couldn't develop the defense. Yeah, he went to the playoff 3 out of 5 years, but that's nothing. We can do that. We need someone who coaches defense. Well, they gave up 55 points to TCU. Brent Venables never been a head coach. Kind of been passed over for jobs before. Built his name in Oklahoma and then Clemson, but this isn't going well. So all those people that say, screw you, Lincoln Riley, who, by the way, is undefeated at USC, we got a better coach. You don't. And those people who think that Leonard is a better coach than Paul Chryst, you got to wait and see. There were 2 guys this season that I said were never, ever going to be able to live up to their predecessors. And that was Brent Venables with Lincoln Riley and Marcus Freeman with Brian Kelly. And now if Leonard's hired, I think it's 3 because I don't think he's going to be able to do what Chryst did there. And the bar is 3 New Year's Bowl games in 6 seasons. So go ahead and do that.
For Wisconsin, is this Jim Leonard's job to lose? Are there any other candidates? I mean, is this the Lance Leipold Derby where he's basically going to have nine jobs to pick from at the end of the year?
Yeah, Lance is in a really good spot. The best thing on earth for Lance would be if this season were canceled somehow. Undefeated, because he's the hottest commodity in the history of hottest commodities. He's Matt Campbell times 2 right now. He's got ties to Wisconsin, coaching at Wisconsin Whitewater. He is certainly one of the top guys. They haven't named Leonard the head football coach. He's the interim still. He's obviously a very, very good candidate for this, but if a Lance Leipold wants to leave Kansas with his connections and history in state, if Dave Aranda wants to leave Baylor with his time at Wisconsin as a defensive coordinator, I think those might, trump the internal hire. So they're going to take their time with this. This is a different job than Nebraska. When I looked at the Nebraska job and I was looking at these coaches that might be hired there, Matt Campbell, Luke Fickell, Lance Leipold, those guys, I thought this was going to be the most attractive job in the Midwest. And it just got trumped because Wisconsin, the more attractive job. Now, Nebraska fans will tell you we got better NIL, which arguable. I don't know who has better what. Better recruiting territory, not true. They both have horrible recruiting territories. And Wisconsin has a more recent winning tradition. Now, you can go back to the 90s with Nebraska winning national championships if you want to, but none of these kids were born then. So that's really not an advantage. So I think the Wisconsin job is the most attractive job out there. And I think they're in a good position to sort of let's see if Leipold want to take the jump there. Even a Stoops at Kentucky, who I don't think would do that. Dave Doran at NC State. There's a lot of good candidates for this Wisconsin job.
And really quickly, Colorado obviously fires Carl Dorrell. Any idea where they may lean as their next head coach?
I think they should hire Barry Odom. And I think it should be no question. The defensive coordinator at Arkansas has done a tremendous job. He got screwed at Missouri. Never really, had some bad losses there, yes, but really never got a chance to build what he wanted to build there. And he knows how to recruit Texas, and Colorado needs to recruit Texas. In the old days, just like Nebraska, they would recruit the speed players in California, but that's not the case anymore. It's just not a consistent, successful thing. So I think, you hire Odom, who has tremendous ties to that area, and is a very, very good coach and would love the job. You need someone who's going to love the job, someone who's not looking to, shoot for the moon. I think Barry Odom is either going to go off to the NFL because, if you're running your own program in college football, it's great. There's a lot of things to do, and NIL and the portal and all that's frustrating, but at least you're in charge. When you're the right-hand man of somebody, and Pittman's a great guy and they have a great relationship, it's less fun. It's almost, let's get a job at the NFL where I don't have to deal with NIL and the portal, or let's run my own program. That's the excitement. So I think Odom wants a redemption tour of sorts. Now, Brian Harson is the wild card here. He's not out of a job yet, but I have heard him mentioned as a fit for Arizona State and Colorado. And even to a lesser degree, Wisconsin, to a lesser degree, Nebraska. I mean, this guy's going to be a hot commodity once he gets fired. And the reason he's going to get fired is because the boosters don't want him there, and the boosters control the world at Auburn. And until that changes, which it never will, Auburn's going to be in disarray. And the only way to change that is to find a hire like Nick Saban, who just wins so much that the boosters they have nothing to say, and they just have to keep their mouths shut. And they haven't found that coach yet.
Let's go on the field here. Week 5 recap. You mentioned Missouri, where Barry Odom used to coach. They gave Georgia all they can handle. Mike, 26-22, Georgia comes out on top. Thoughts from that game? Surprised that Georgia struggled a little bit? Surprised at how well Missouri was able to kind of stick with them? Or do you chalk this up? Kind of my stance on this is every team every year has a clunker. They have one game where you're like, what are we doing? How are we here? They pull it out in the end. They have the win. They go on. The season is what the season is. Is this that clunker for Georgia?
It could be, and it comes at a really good time because, like I said, I think Kirby Smart wanted to drop from number 1. I think Kirby Smart wanted to be challenged. I think he wanted to have an opportunity to tell his team, step up or step out. And the problem with it is that Missouri really showed a lot of weaknesses that we didn't know Georgia had. I thought Georgia had great wide receivers. They don't. They've got 2 really freaky tight ends. Brock Bowers is amazing and Darnell Washington is uncoverable. But their receivers aren't fast and they don't get a lot of separation. I thought Stetson Bennett was unflappable. He didn't have a horrible game, but he got hit so hard and so often that I think he was shook a little bit, and I think he was banged up badly. And so what you've learned from this to handle the offense at Georgia, and I thought their offensive line was much, much better than this. I mean, they did the edge guys, the linebackers, I mean, they were not able to pick up the blitz. They were not able to single block these guys. There was so much pressure on Bennett, and he was getting hit so much. The offensive line was really a disappointment to me. So offensively, the way to handle Georgia is to hit, play more physical than they are, put Bennett on the ground, hit him in the sternum every other play, and sort of pick and choose what you want to do as far as blitz packages. You can bring them. You can leave your corners on a solo, on an island with some of these wide receivers. You just got to account for Bowers, and you got to try to deal with Washington and how big he is. Defensively, I don't think we saw anything bad from Georgia. Missouri kicked 18,000 field goals. They bowed up when they had to in certain situations, but they don't run to the ball like they did last year. They're missing some of those guys. The Tyndalls and Nakobe Deans of the world that were so explosive to the football that the play was shut down before it even started. Those guys are missing. They're also missing a little bit in the interior. Obviously, losing 2 guys in the NFL draft very high hurts, and Jalen Carter injured hurts. So they're susceptible. So I think it's good that they struggled, but I think there's a game film that everybody's going to watch, and it's going to be this one as to how to beat Georgia, and it's going to cost them a game down the road. They're going to lose a football game because somebody saw what Eli Drinkwitz and his team were able to do against this Georgia team.
Let's stay in the SEC for a second. Alabama loses Bryce Young to a shoulder injury. Jalen Milroe comes in. They obviously struggle a little bit, but pull out a victory against Arkansas. Do you have any concern about Alabama if Bryce Young can't go for a couple of games as we kind of charge the season? To your point earlier, Texas A&M this week, at Tennessee after that too. Any concern about Alabama if Bryce Young is not back there?
I mean, at the beginning of the season, Texas A&M was supposed to be the more difficult of these games. Texas A&M is a joke. I think Alabama is favored by 24 points. They will not struggle, and Nick Saban could very well run the score up because he doesn't like Jimbo Fisher, and he's petty enough to do that, and I love his pettiness. It would be kind of fun for college football if he ran it up to the point where Texas A&M was so embarrassed by this loss that they fired Jimbo Fisher, and then all chaos occurs. And Nick Saban's thinking about that. Trust me, it's not high on his list. You know, winning the game, quarterback issues, all this other stuff is high on his list. But somewhere on that list, down at number 10 or 11, is get Jimbo fired. They're going to kill Texas A&M. Tennessee's a different story. It's at Tennessee. That atmosphere is amazing. That offense is scary. And yes, there's a drop off. I mean, Jalen Milroe is a freak, 6'2", 220-pound rock. You know, he's Derrick Henry-like runner. He's supposedly the fastest football player on this team. But he's not an accomplished passer. He doesn't have the experience and the rhythm. We saw him in the spring game, how good he was. But in game action, he's not Bryce Young. He's not even close to him as far as a passing threat. So you have to game plan differently for him. And the game plan is to keep him contained. Don't let him run. Make him beat you with the passing game. And that's a little bit scary as you head into Mississippi State's coming up after that. LSU looks like a little bit of a dangerous team. Ole Miss is after that. It's a pretty hefty schedule coming up. So I'm concerned if I'm Alabama from a passing standpoint because, you know, Bryce Young throws them open and these receivers aren't that great for Alabama, which sounds funny to say because we've been so spoiled in recent years. Milroe doesn't throw them open. And that could be a little bit of an issue, but they'll throttle A&M, and I think they might struggle a little bit with Tennessee on the road.
Do you think we see Bryce Young if he's not 100%? Do you think Jimbo gets a chance to face him, or do you think Nick holds him out this week?
I think Nick holds him out. I mean, it's his throwing shoulder, so that's the concern for me. You know, you can shoot him up, and you know the pain can be managed, but the mechanics are going to be slightly off. Now, I don't know how bad it is. I know he's, you know, questionable and all that stuff, but I think in this situation, I expect Milroe to be the starter, and then I expect them to just roll over A&M, and then I expect, you know, Bryce Young to be back for Tennessee.
All right, let's go to Clemson. Are you now a DJU fan? Are you a believer in what DJ Uiagalelei is doing at Clemson? They are 5-0. They beat a pretty tough NC State team 30-20. Are you firmly in DJU camp?
I've always been a fan. I've been extremely critical because he's not the same player that I saw, you know, in high school. In high school, he wasn't thinking a lot. He was reacting and he was using his ability naturally. And that's why we had the debate between Bryce Young and DJ. I gotta practice his name. So it's Uiagalelei, right?
Yes. Yep.
Uiagalelei. But you know, we saw him come in COVID. He was slinging the ball around. I think it was Notre Dame, and I forget who else he played, but he putting up big numbers. Then he started thinking. Then he started getting tight. Then he started overthinking. Then he started just getting in his own head. And we saw all last season how just average he was to below average. We started to see a little bit this season, but he was still below average in Georgia Tech, you know, the Georgia Tech game. Still below average, you know, against Louisiana Tech. Furman doesn't count because it's not a real team. Started to see it turn on a little bit against Wake Forest, but it was still slow. There was still a delay of recognition of where the football should go and how quickly. That is starting to fade. So, you know, 21 of 30, 209 yards, 1 TD. He carried the ball a lot more as well, which I think is huge for him. They weren't running him last year either, and it seemed there was a reputation that this big kid had that he didn't want to run. That's not the case. I mean, he had 14 carries, 73 yards, 2 touchdowns. That balance for Cam Newton is who I compared him to coming out of high school, is extremely important. Do I believe? I believe Clemson's going to lose a game this season. I believe he's getting better, but I'm not there yet. He's not the number 3 player in the country as I had him coming out of high school, and he's a far cry from Bryce Young. And this team, they had some secondary injuries, and Brian Brzee is going to miss another game. And defensively, they're solid, but there are some weaknesses there. So who's going to exploit it? It's not going to be BC. I doubt it's going to be Florida State. Syracuse is going to be an interesting game for them. It's at home, but that's the type of game that Clemson always struggles with, because Syracuse says Trader's very effective. He doesn't turn the ball over. Sean Tucker can run the ball. They can control the pace of the game, perhaps. That's the one I look at that scares me the most if I'm a Clemson fan.
The quietest 5-0 team in the nation, Mike, the Ole Miss Rebels. Now, they haven't played anybody. They beat Kentucky this weekend, 22-19. But they are 5-0 with a pretty soft schedule coming up. Vandy, Auburn, LSU, Texas A&M before they get to Alabama. Is Ole Miss for real, or is it just a function of the fact that they've played Troy, Central Arkansas, Georgia Tech, and Tulsa before Kentucky?
No, they're real. Lane Kiffin is a tremendous coach. So I was watching that game, and it struck me that we are looking at, and I truly, truly believe this, the successor to Nick Saban. And again,
we need to get a hot take sounder on the show or something. My goodness.
It's a few years away, obviously. Nick Saban's not going anywhere. He did look old for the first time in my life in the Texas game, but, Alabama's still a program, a juggernaut, and we're talking like 3-4 years from now. I think Lane Kiffin loves where he is. I think he's got a great situation at Ole Miss, and he will be involved in other coaching searches because he is a great coach. Offensively, he's a great coach. This team defensively has improved quite a bit. And it's not like they, destroyed Kentucky. Kentucky arguably should have won that football game. But they held them to 19 points. They've improved so much defensively. Now, they've beaten nobody. They beat Troy. Troy's not a bad team. But they beat Central Arkansas. Georgia Tech sucks. Tulsa. Kentucky was the first good team they played. And they played very well defensively. And I think that's the key for him, because last year the defense sucked. And I knew they'd improve because they added a lot of guys in the portal. But what I see from this 3-headed monster at running back, Jackson Dart's meh. They have good receivers, but their defense is much, much improved. I think this is a team that probably is going to continue undefeated heading into Alabama in November. Now, Vanderbilt's an easy win. Auburn's an easy win. At LSU is not easy. At Texas A&M, who knows what state that program is going to be in. So I'm giving them 4 victories here that maybe I shouldn't. But this team is legit. They can run the ball. They play physical. Lane Kiffin can out-scheme you. And defensively, they've improved probably more than any other team in the SEC.
Which of these two teams has a better shot of beating Alabama? Both of them are road games for Bama. They're at Tennessee and they're at Ole Miss. Of those two, which team do you think has a better chance of upsetting Alabama?
I think Ole Miss does. I like Tennessee, top 10 team. I think they're going to struggle a little bit against LSU this week. They've got Hendon Hooker is very efficient with the football, doesn't turn it over. They don't have the same running game that Ole Miss does. Ole Miss with that depth, they've got obviously 2 transfer running backs that are very good, and then a true freshman that's surprising everybody. I think that's going to be the key. Now, usually it's mobile quarterbacks that give Alabama a little bit of a fit. But I think this is a team that can, run effectively against them. And I don't think Tennessee can. I think Tennessee is going to struggle in the running game. That's going to allow, those bookend pass rushers to tee off on Hooker, and he could have a long night.
Let's go to the Big 12 for a second. We touched on it off the top. TCU 55, Oklahoma 24. That was 27-10 after the first quarter, Mike. Dylan Gabriel gets knocked out. Things don't get a lot better for Oklahoma. Guys were running wide. There's still a guy running wide open somewhere in Oklahoma right now that they're not covering. I mean, that was a tough defensive performance. What's your emotion? Surprised, shocked, embarrassed? Like, where are you at after watching that game?
Shocked. I mean, they lost to Kansas State, and I understood that. Kansas State gives them trouble, probably more so than any other Big 12 team in Norman, Oklahoma. For some reason, Kansas State has their number and always gives them trouble. And Kansas State was coming off of a tough loss as they came down from the Missouri win and then played, two lanes level and lost that game. And they were kind of angry, and they had a lot of confidence going into this game. But what I expect from an Oklahoma team that loses a game that they shouldn't lose, which they do every other year, maybe every year, they should clobber their next opponent. And they got destroyed. And it was stunning, remarkable fashion, embarrassing. And it's embarrassing to the fan base and the boosters and everybody who, was pissed that Lincoln Riley left, because you know what? He gave up 41 points to Kansas State. He gave up 55 to TCU. These are not, 4 and 5 star football players. You got smoked. Your defense is worse than it was under Lincoln Riley, and you hired a defensive coach to fix that. So it's embarrassing. I don't know what to expect, because both Oklahoma this year looks like garbage to me over the last 2 games, and Texas is just Jekyll and Hyde. You don't know what team you're going to get. So that showdown is going to be fun to watch, because it could be a field goal game, or it could be, somebody absolutely, boat racing the other team. It's just, you have no idea with these two programs.
Oklahoma make Max Duggan look like John Elway out there. I mean, 67-yard touchdown run, 5 total touchdowns.
I know he ran track in high school, but he outran everybody. It wasn't even close. Like, the speed of the Oklahoma defense was extremely disturbing. And Duggan, by the way, I mean, talk about a great year. I mean, you talk about efficient. The thing every quarterback coach, every offensive coach wants is for your quarterback to be effective and not turn the football over. And he's got 11 TDs, no interceptions. He's been just a revelation for them, which is funny, because he's from Iowa, and the Hawkeyes could certainly use a quarterback like that, and they don't have one.
Sonny Dykes has those boys playing hard. They got Kansas in the college game day game this week, Mike, which should be fun. And you talk about Texas, Oklahoma. We don't know who the quarterbacks are going to be at that game. We still don't know if Quinn Ewers is going to be back or not for Texas. Don't know the status of Dylan Gabriel after what we assume was a concussion in this game, Mike. So Texas, Oklahoma with backup quarterbacks could be even more exciting, yes?
I have a prediction for you. I think Ewers will start, and I think Gabriel sits. And the reason I say Gabriel sits is I don't know to what level he has. Is this? Oh, I have no idea what level, grade concussion he was given and all this other stuff. But we are in a real
where we are right now with head injuries, like that's a thing for sure.
It's going to impact everybody's ability to there's not going to be another player who's concussed that comes back in a football game without massive scrutiny. And I think we had one in the NFL yesterday. I can't remember who it was, but it wasn't a quarterback, but for a quarterback, you go out with a concussion, you're not coming back in. Then the 12 steps and hoops you had to get through to play are now 25. Mm-hmm. So Oklahoma has to be extremely careful letting him back on the field, because if they do and he gets hurt, so I think he's going to sit. And I think, honestly, moving forward in college football and even in the NFL, the protocol changed from you get concussed on a Sunday and you can play on a Thursday to you get concussed on a Sunday, you're not playing the following Sunday. Yeah. The earliest you're going to play is 2 weeks. I think that's what changed all from that Thursday night football game.
Well, I mean, we're talking about Tua Tagovailoa, so he gets injured Thursday. He's already ruled out for the game next Sunday, Mike. So he's already out for the game. Now, again, two concussions back to back, although one was a back injury. Who really knows about that? But you're right. The protocols are going to change
Yeah.
very, very quickly in college football and pro football.
Yeah. And it's going to affect everybody, and I can't really speak to whether it's good or bad or whatever. I mean, honestly, CTE is important, and targeting now is going to probably change as well. And that's going to be enforced differently. And all these, blows to the head and everything's going to be changed. I saw an article today, those big foam pads on helmets that they wear, when you're in shells in practice and stuff like that. Now people are saying that should be required in football. It's going to happen eventually, not now. But what we saw on Thursday night, with that neurological, the concussion and the neurological response that went so viral, and the NFL doctor being fired immediately, and the Dolphins coming under a serious investigation as to whether he should have played or not, it's going to change everything. And that's why I say, Quinn Ewers could come back from a shoulder injury sooner than expected, but nobody's going to come back from a concussion sooner than expected, even if they're ready. Dylan Gabriel could pass all 25, 28, 30, whatever, indicators he needs to pass to play, and they could still hold him out simply because of the culture and the temperature of the world right now when it comes to head injuries.
Let's go to two more quickly on the field, Mike. Wake Forest beats Florida State 31-21. Obviously, a bounce back win for Wake Forest after losing to Clemson. Can Wake be a team that challenges in that ACC? It feels like there's a couple of teams kind of fighting for that second, pole position behind Clemson with NC State, Florida State, obviously still in there. Wake Forest. Where do you kind of rank Wake Forest after Clemson in the ACC?
Yeah, it's interesting because you've got. Syracuse obviously is the only undefeated team, and everybody's expecting them to lose eventually. And I don't know if they will or won't. I mean, they're playing extremely well. I'm not saying they're going to go undefeated and go to the playoff, but you could certainly make an argument for them being the best team. Wake Forest beat Florida State. Florida State had some kicking issues. It wasn't like Wake Forest was by far the better team. It was close. So as far as the second best team, it's certainly not anybody from the Coastal. I mean, they all suck, every one of them. No offense to Duke. You lost to Kansas, and it wasn't a rout or anything.
Not sure why Duke would be offended by that. I think they know they suck.
They're 4-1. I mean, that's nice and all. And North Carolina's 4-1, and they didn't give up 80 points this past weekend, which is great. But the Coastal's an embarrassment. So you have to look to the Atlantic. And you have to really – I'm going to give Syracuse the benefit of the doubt here and say that even though they're ranked behind Wake Forest, and I know NC State is ranked ahead of them as well, but I think Syracuse is the second best team in the
second time in the show, Mike. You've given Syracuse love.
Well, and again, they're playing so well in so many different factors. I mean, they blew out Louisville. That was a surprise. UConn and Wagner don't count. But they won a close game against Purdue. They won a close game against Virginia. They're learning how to win. Schrader is a different quarterback, just a different guy than he was at Mississippi State. Just very, very efficient, dangerous with his legs, not throwing into traffic. And their defense is really kind of shockingly good. Their defensive backs are some of the best players in the country that you've never heard of. So they've got NC State and Clemson in their next two games. That's not good. They have a bye week this week. But right now I would have to say Syracuse over Clemson. Over Wake Forest, because Wake Forest had their chance at Clemson. They didn't win. And Florida State had their chance at against Wake Forest, and they didn't win either. So give me Syracuse.
All right. In the Hank Stram, what the hell's going on out there? Moment of the week. Georgia Tech beats Pitt. Georgia Tech cleaned house this week. Athletic director, head coach walked to their cars, escorted off the property. Brent Key, interim head coach, a Georgia Tech guy. He was pretty emotional in the locker room. Like a 26-21 win for Georgia Tech a week after basically cleaning house. Pitt team that we thought was good is now 3-2 in the year, by the way. What is this more about Georgia Tech? Is this more about Pitt? Is Pat Narduzzi a hot seat candidate? If we're firing people for crazy reasons, is Pat Narduzzi should be looking over his shoulder for the pink slip?
Completely embarrassing, unacceptable. I mean, every team we've seen, and there haven't been a ton of them, but we saw Nebraska get that first little boost of interim head coach excitement, in one drive against Oklahoma, and then they sucked. Arizona State maybe lasted one drive as well, and then they sucked. The assumption would be that Georgia Tech would come out excited for one drive and suck. And this was at Pitt. I mean, this wasn't a road game for the Panthers either. It's an embarrassingly horrible loss. And it really does make you think, because I thought Pitt was a real football team. They lost to Tennessee in a close game. Tennessee's pretty good. They beat West Virginia in a close game. And then they lose to Georgia Tech. And now I don't think they're a real football team. And Narduzzi's a guy that the Pitt fans love to complain about. I don't think he's on the hot seat because I don't think Pitt can do better. That's kind of insulting, I guess. But he's a good coach. He's won his division. They were obviously ACC champs last year. I think he's safe enough, but for them to be, 3-2 right now, you could make an argument they should have lost to West Virginia if Neil Brown weren't a goofball and ruined that game for West Virginia. They could legit be 2-3. He's not on the hot seat, but if I'm a Pitt fan, I'm pretty ticked off, and Pitt fans get ticked off at Narduzzi very, very quickly. So it's not pretty there, but I don't think he's in any jeopardy.
We don't hear enough of the national media calling coaches goofballs. I think we need more of that.
I'm trying to think of what I call it goofball.
Yeah. One more question for you. Is Kansas for real?
Who did I call a goofball?
Neil Brown.
Oh, that was so stupid.
I'm not saying it's not justified, Mike. I'm just saying you don't hear it all the time.
Right? I was out of line, but no, that was just dumb. Yeah. That game itself was dumb, and he's just.
Yeah. Again, not disputing any of the accuracy of the report, just the adjective to describe the individual. Kansas, are they for real? A 14-11, a barn burner, by the way, over Iowa State. They're now 5-0, have a matchup with TCU this weekend. Is Kansas for real? Is this little fun story going to continue on, Mike?
They're for real. For real being relative. They're for real in the Big 12.
Is anybody on that team a goofball?
No goofballs. And Lance is a tremendous coach. I came up with my Big 12 rankings at the beginning of the season. And of course, West Virginia fans were upset Neil Brown was last. Well, guess what? He's coached like a goofball, and he just hasn't been good. People were ticked off that I had Sonny Dykes ahead of Brent Venables. And they're like, well, they're both first-year coaches. They're both 0-0. No, Sonny Dykes has more experience. He's a better coach. And they were really ticked off that I had Lance Leipold number 3, behind Campbell and Gundy. Well, he's a really good coach, and he belongs there. They're 5-0. Now, the best team to me in that conference is Oklahoma State. They're 4-0. I think there's a bit of a drop-off after them. Kansas State I thought would be good. That one loss is so stupid because they should be 5-0, and they should be probably in the top 15, top 10 area. Kansas is real in relativity to the Big 12. They're not real when it comes to the playoff. They're not real when it comes to national championships. They're not real in that respect, but they're good. Look at they lead the Big 12 in points scored. The play of that offense has been really, really good. The problem is they give up too many points here and there. And I think that could hurt them against the TCU. And if it doesn't hurt them against the TCU, it's certainly going to hurt them down the line when they do play Oklahoma State or Kansas State, who could both put up points.
What's another game from the weekend that kind of caught your eye or that you were following along with?
That's a good question. Let me take a quick look.
You want to talk about that, that barn burner Rice UAB or no?
Nope, I really don't. I liked what I saw from Michigan. I didn't expect Iowa to score points. We know Iowa.
Nobody expects Iowa to score points, Mike.
But I figured at home,
Iowa doesn't expect Iowa to score points.
Kinnick's a very difficult place to play. They're top 5 killer, teams, and I could see Michigan perhaps coming out and having a dud game and maybe struggling to win 13-10 or even losing. And they didn't. They ran the ball effectively. They have good balance in their offense. JJ McCarthy is not the all-world guy that everybody thinks he is, but he's maturing. He's coming along. But that was a game that could have been a problem for Michigan, and it wasn't. So that one kind of stood out to me a little bit. I think we're starting to see a little bit of a weakness in USC. They throttled Arizona State, and it was never really in doubt. But I don't know, 21-17 at the half against an Arizona State team that lost their coach and lost pretty much all their talent and isn't very good. Coming off a game against Oregon State where, they could have easily lost. That's a little scary to me. Penn State's offense looked horrible. That worries me. And Oklahoma State continues to be quietly, the team you never hear about that is very, very good, very dangerous, very well coached. Spencer Sanders' revenge tour continues. And I think they're going to be a team that we're going to be looking at as a potential playoff team. Because the Big 12, very erratic, and it's going to be difficult to knock them off. I mean, Baylor was one of these games you circled at the beginning of the season that they could lose because it's on the road, and they handled it. So impressed with Oklahoma State for sure. Disappointed by Minnesota. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Come on, Purdue, whatever. I guess that's about it. I mean, there was one other game. Utah destroyed Oregon State. That was a good win. Oregon actually took care of Stanford. Stanford always gives them trouble. Always. They didn't really give them trouble here. I mean, they were 31-3 at the half. So I think Oregon's starting to come together on our Dan Lanning as well. And a guy who should be on the hot seat watch is David Shaw. Makes $9 million a year reportedly. You don't get those public numbers there. Dude, beat Colgate, drubbed by USC, drubbed by Washington, drubbed by Oregon now. I mean, if you have a 3-9 or 4-8 season, could be gone.
Let's look ahead to next week, Mike. There are 3 matchups of ranked teams. Number 8, Tennessee. Number 25, LSU. TCU 17, Kansas 19, and then you have Utah 11, UCLA 18. If you can only watch one of those games this weekend, which one are you going to watch?
Well, it's definitely not going to be Utah, UCLA. No offense to them, but the crowds there just depress me. And the Rose Bowl can make it look like there's less people. But there's less people. I mean, it's just awful. You got an undefeated football team and nobody cares. Nobody shows up. I need a sort of a raucous atmosphere for me to actually get into a football game, even if it's on TV. So I don't care about that one. So then it comes down to Tennessee, LSU, which is certainly intriguing. But it's not a night game. It's
a noon kick. Yeah.
Yeah. And that changes.
That just doesn't feel right. That shouldn't be at noon.
Right. That it should be a night game. It should be Death Valley. It should be like crazy. So it's not that one either, although I think that's going to be an intriguing, very close football game. It's TCU in Kansas, man. I mean,
wow.
Memorial Stadium is going to be as loud as it's been since the Fat Man was in charge. Back in the day, Mark Mangino.
Yeah. Okay.
And
make sure we were clear on who that was.
And game day's there for the first time ever in Lawrence, Kansas. And it's really just cool. TCU is a 7-point favorite going into this game on the road against an undefeated Kansas team. Kansas has a lot to prove. And I'm really interested in seeing, how they handle this, what I call attention. They've gone under the radar a little bit, and now you've got game day there, and everybody's going to be watching this game, and it's in a great slot. And Jalen Daniels is a guy to watch. He's fun to watch, and he's going to be the guy that I have my eyes on.
TCU is a touchdown favorite right now.
It's crazy. I don't understand why.
Yeah. So
but somebody knows something in Vegas. People know stuff. They
don't build all those buildings for nothing, Mike. What's got you pissed off this week?
I mean, the Chryst firing, I don't have a dog in that fight, so I don't really care. But what pisses me off is certainly the fact that there's a lot of coaches out there that are ridiculously overpaid. And it's all a lack of administrative smarts. The fact that Scott Frost is still, collecting a $15 million buyout when that should have never in a million years happened. The fact that Mel Tucker's making $95 million, and if he gets fired tomorrow, he gets all of it anyways. And that was just a knee-jerk reaction to LSU being interested in him after one good season. And you remember, this guy was 5-7 at Colorado, and they hired him, and he was making $1 million a year more than Mark D'Antonio. The world is stupid, and administrators are stupid. Jimbo Fisher has $85 million left on his contract, and he's been awful. Just really embarrassingly bad. Number one recruiting class is great, but your offense sucks, and you haven't developed a quarterback there. David Shaw, I already mentioned, making $9 million. He's been good for them over the years, but they haven't been good since Christian McCaffrey was there, which was 100 years ago. Dana Holgerson's making $4 million a year at Houston. That's a group of 5 salary.
He just got a vote of confidence too by Tillman Fertitta. Even though things are imploding there, they lose a tough one at Tulane. He's yelling at the fans on the sidelines, but yeah, he got a vote of confidence, Mike.
Yeah, if you've ever watched $1 Million Buyer, which is a great show, I don't think it's on anymore, but it's Tillman Fertitta, talking about this, that, and the other, his business sense, and it's kind of like a reality show, like a bar rescue for restaurants and things like that, but it's for investments. Tillman Fertitta is no fool. He's no joke. A vote of confidence from him is essentially a pink slip. So Holgerson's done. He's 2-3. He's embarrassing the program. They're really underachieving. And he's making $4 million. Now, $4 million to Fertitta is nothing. He's a billionaire. But vote of confidence from him means nothing. Houston is going to part ways with that guy. And again, this is a guy, he's a wild card. At West Virginia, there were all these stories about this, that, and the other off-field stuff. And he's got to win to be attractive as a football coach. If he's not winning, then he's just a guy that's got a lot of issues that come out. And Memphis is 4-1. They're at home. I think they're going to beat Houston. I'm not saying he's going to be fired after that, but he's got so much talent. The other thing that it doesn't piss me off, but it's intriguing to me. SMU, if you heard about this, a lot of their players are going to sit out because they don't want to use a year of eligibility because they all want to go into the portal and blah, blah, blah. And they're playing UCF. They're going to get drubbed there too. Now, this was a team. They were a team that was supposed to be.
Have you seen John Rice Plumlee throw for 49 yards in a game? Because I have.
He can run at least. And Tanner Mordecai. He's
actually the leading rusher in the AAC, if that tells you anything.
But Tanner Mordecai is supposed to have all these weapons, right? And then they're supposed to. And they've lost to Maryland and TCU, who are 2 good football teams. But clearly, this team is lost. I mean, they don't have any continuity. Everybody's pointing a finger at each other, which is similar. You remember when Holgerson arrived at Houston, he decided to redshirt everybody. This is guys deciding to redshirt themselves.
That was the De'Ara King situation, right? De'Ara King sits out and says, "Hey, I'm done here," and other guys opt out too. And then Holgerson basically takes a buffer year and just says, "Hey, I'll take a gap season. We'll be better next year." And he really hasn't ever delivered on that promise.
No, and so now you've got, not the coaches saying we're going to redshirt guys. You got guys saying I'm going to redshirt myself. And Sonny Dykes is gone. Rhett Lashley's there, and it's already off the rails very bad. So I think that's something that was going to happen with the portal, especially with the move to the portal in December. You can jump in there if you're not a grad transfer or whatever. So it's not unexpected, but the first team that does it is going to set a trend for other teams, and it's never good to be first. So I think SMU's in a bit of trouble. I think Houston's in a bit of trouble. And these were 2 teams that I thought were going to be near the top of the American Conference, and they're just not.
Yeah, you and a lot of other people. I think Houston had a really soft schedule in the AAC. They don't play Cincinnati. They don't play UCF. So there was a lot of thought that they would ride this thing. But Tulane, with their 3rd-string quarterback, by the way, I should tell you, Tulane's 3rd-string quarterback beats Houston at home. Like, one last one for you. If I had told you coming into this NFL season that Bailey Zappi would be the first rookie quarterback to throw a touchdown pass, you would have said what to me?
I would have said That seems crazy. Now,
You just called
again,
me a goofball.
no, but Mac Jones, okay, Mac Jones is serviceable. I mean, I think the fact that he, had such a great season at Alabama and waited his turn and was coached well, and then was talk of like, the 49ers were going to take him, and they ended up, landing on Trey Lance, who looks like a disaster as well, and who's the best quarterback in that class after Trevor Lawrence, blah blah blah. I think Mac Jones was certainly overinflated value-wise, just like Kenny Pickett this past draft. I don't even know who their backup was. Who is
Brian
it?
Hoyer. Brian Hoyer.
Okay, he's been around for 28 years.
At least.
It's been a backup all 28 of those years. I remember him at Michigan State 1,000 years ago. So he's not good. So I don't think it would have been like, oh, you're nuts, you're crazy. But, you would expect one of these rookies that was drafted in the first couple rounds to have thrown a touchdown pass by now at the very least, but none of them are playing. I'll tell you this, I'm more surprised that Wisconsin had 2 yards on 24 carries against Illinois.
Okay.
I'm more surprised that Arizona, Jaden DeLora at Arizona, and East Carolina Holton Ahlers each had 450 plus yards and 6 touchdowns with 0 interceptions in the same freaking weekend. And I'm more surprised that Drake May is the best quarterback in the ACC. Not that I didn't think he was good, but all the Trevor Lawrence comparisons that I heard about coming out of the spring and the fall, but he still won the job, had me very confused as to why people are so high on him. But we should be high on him. He's really, really good.
All right, well, I thought that Bailey Zappi stat would get you, Mike, but I guess not. It's also getting dark where Mike is at now. He looks.
Wait. So it looks like I'm in the basement, right? So this is the problem. Well, this is the problem I have. So let me turn on my light.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So I turn on my light, and then my face is like.
Yeah.
So let me turn down my light.
In the dark, though, Mike, I didn't know how to tell you this. In the dark, you had a bit of like a. Are you familiar with the old Austin Powers movies?
Yeah, absolutely.
You had a little bit of like the potential shape of a fat bastard from the Austin Powers movies.
I can't think of anything more insulting for you.
I'm sure you could
possibly say. So there,
it looks like you had sideburns and looked like your face was there. Watch the replay, you'll see.
This is a little better. Hold on, one more.
Take your time.
Okay, so now if I just do the overhead lights and no ring light.
Oh, that's much better.
Yeah, but it's still horrible. But I look less fat bastard like, and yeah, I should shave. But
it just looked like you had mutton chops the way you were looking at the camera there, and the glare looked like you just had these big giant mutton chops, which maybe you should grow. It could be a new look for you.
Listen, I'm fat, but I'm not fat bastard. I mean, that dude is awesome. He is legendary, and I could never even if I ate like 30,000 calories a day for the next 7 years, I couldn't reach that.
Well, let's challenge Mike to try that. We're gonna get out of here. We're gonna try to practice saying DJ Uwe Ungalele some more, but we'll be back at some point in time for another show.
Again, follow Mike moving forward. Top light.
You think so? All right, we figured it out now. Like 9 shows in, we've got the lighting figured out.
What do you have?
I got a little ring light right here. I also have an up top light here, but I have a little ring light right here in my face. But I don't have a window. My window is off over here. You're I don't know if you like to get your tan on during the afternoons there by the window.
The way this place is set up, we just moved here like 6 months ago. The way it's set up is there's an office area against the wall with no window. And then there's an office area here against the window. And I wanted the vitamin D, to handle my horrible depression. But it's really ruined my pod life. But I think it's kind of funny to join in on a pod where somebody looks like fat bastard in the dark and is so unable to figure out his audio. Because before, what was our problem? My webcam was slow and choppy.
Yeah.
Now I'm completely unclear and look ridiculous. So what's going to be next? Tune in.
I assume you'll be upside down next week is kind of what I'm waiting for. So you'll have to tune in to find out. You'll have to subscribe, first of all, to YouTube to find out. Make sure you're also subscribing to the podcast feed as well on Believe. Wherever you get your podcast, you'll find Mike Farrell Sports. Again, go to his website.
I've been
MakeFlowSports.com.
less excited about doing podcasts because the subscribers were going up and then it just flatlined.
Mm-hmm.
I need more subscribers to do more podcasts.
Yeah. We're going to work on that. We're going to work on that. Maybe it'll be just a show of us saying DJ Uyunglele.
Can we give prizes? I don't have any money for prizes, though.
How about a personal phone call from you?
Oh, man. You think people would sign up for that?
God, no.
Yeah.
Look, so here's the thing. Hold on. You were one of the godfathers of the model of pay some money to get some information that no one else has. If you could personally call somebody who is a diehard fan of a school and give them a story about somebody at their school that they don't know about that only you do, I think people would sign up for that.
Oh, I got stories about everybody.
Like if there's a an Alabama fan out there and you've got a really good Nick Saban recruiting story that you could tell that basically they have to swear to never tell anybody and it's going to cost them $2.99 to hear it from you. I think people would fall for that.
Well, I could talk about Reuben Foster getting kicked out of the opening.
Oh, we'll put that behind the paywall.
And taking an illegal visit up north during that. Yeah, I'll get scandal. So if I offered, a half-hour call of just pure scandal, maybe people would sign up.
Maybe. Find out. DM Mike. His DMs are open. He accepts all messages, all curse words, anything you've got. You can DM Mike at Farrell Sports.
If you subscribe, maybe I'll do that.
So here's what you do: subscribe on the YouTube channel. Send Mike a screenshot of that subscription so he knows that you're legit. He knows it's a real deal. And maybe I'll force him to go through those and randomly pick one out, and he'll DM you, get your phone number. You guys can have a nice chat.
Or we can have a podcast.
Oh, we're doing guests now. Let's do it. Okay.
Well, can we do 3 people?
We can do as many people as you want.
Okay, because I got a lot of people that I know that I could ask to do the podcast that would be very much more interested than you and me. But I didn't know we could do 3.
We can do as many. Actually, you can do up to 10 if you really, really wanted to. That becomes a little bit too much of Hollywood Squares for me, but you can do 10 if you want to.
All right. So if Jadeveon Clowney's coach from high school wanted to come on, or let's say Chris Fowler.
I thought you were going to say Jadeveon Clowney if he wants to come on. I think that would help you out. Chris Fowler would help you out too, by the way. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that would be a lot of favors. Or Scott Van Pelt, that'd be a lot of favors and stuff like that. But I'm saying, there's also guys that I know, like Percy Harvin's high school coach, Chris Beatty, is now in the NFL, and he's got some really interesting Percy Harvin stories. But I don't know if anybody cares about Percy Harvin because he's retired from the NFL now, and who cares?
Is he doing okay?
He's doing great, and he's going to be
a rough patch for a while, right?
I think he'll be, a coordinator in college football soon. Great recruiter. But yeah, there's rando guys like that. I could probably get David Pollock to do the podcast with me. I don't effort. I don't try. I make no effort. And I guess to be successful in a podcast, you have to actually make an effort.
It doesn't hurt. I mean, of all the things you could do that wouldn't hurt a podcast, making an effort is probably one of the top 2 or 3.
I think we should start getting guests on that.
Let's do that. Yeah.
Can you organize it though? I don't want to do anything.
Good. No, you. Well, I need your name, right? Because David Pollock is not going to listen to. As much as I think we are cool, I don't think David Pollock's going to listen to me. But if you hey David, let's set something up here, I can knock it out of the park for you. But my success rate in David Pollock returning DMs from me is relatively low at this point. To be fair, I've also never tried. So
I'm trying to think of the most famous person that I know, but okay, I'll work on it. But
I got some. So I have one famous person on my phone from my UCF days we actually had on the podcast. I'll see if he's available. I can get you Maury Povich.
Is he still alive?
He's still alive, Mike. Bite your tongue. Yes, he's alive.
He's like 80.
He's a young 80, though.
I would love
he's married to Connie Chung, for crying out loud. I mean, he's fine.
Can we figure out if it's my baby or not?
He did a sounder for me that basically says, Sons of UCF, you are the father. I play that on the show every week. Yes.
Do you? Do you have that as
your nice guy? I do not know. Super nice guy, though. Really nice guy. He talked a lot. We were just trying to do a 10-minute, why were you UCF's college game day picker in 2018 when you didn't go to UCF and have nothing to do with UCF? An hour and a half later, we just kept on going.
Why was he? What was the answer?
The answer essentially was they had nobody else. He was friends with the producer. He'd always want to do it. They're like, "Hey, Maury, are you free this week?" So they called him a last minute, and he was on a plane to Orlando.
Who's the most famous UCF alum? Maybe I can get him on.
Alums. All right, so you got Dante Culpepper, but he's kind of been more of a recluse of late.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able
Brandon
to.
Marshall is out there. He's got his own podcast stuff he's doing these days. Brandon Marshall is one. In the entertainment space, Daniel Tosh is a UCF alum. Tosh.0. Yeah. Daniel Tosh.
He's a big college football guy too.
He is. He went to UCF.
Teaches it all the time. He's more of a Pac-12 conformist now, but whatever. Okay, Daniel Tosh. He's got a lot of followers.
Daniel Tosh? He does. Do you know him?
No, I'm going to check to see if he follows me. The weirdest people follow me. Like Peter Gammons follows me. The baseball dude.
Gammons. Wow, yeah.
Why? No idea.
DM ask him.
I got rando followers like that. I got Deion Sanders. I could get him. He's pretty big, right?
Yeah, he's doing well for himself, I think.
All right. Let me think about this. This is not going to happen, right?
Typically, we do production meetings off the air, but I think it's much more exciting to do it on the air like this.
Well, and you also know me well enough to know that this isn't going to happen. And the fact that I even reached out to you today to do a podcast after yesterday, I was like, I don't want to do one, is really miraculous. So I'm proud of myself for actually doing one.
It's funny is I was sitting here on a Monday and I was like, you know what? I didn't get a text from Mike today. Usually it's like a random afternoon, like it's just one word. There's no hellos. There's no how are you doing? It's pod question mark. Sometimes not even question mark anymore. I think he's stopped the question mark. Stop the question mark. One too many characters for Mike. So it's usually just pod. And I was sitting here last night. I was like, I didn't do a pod with Mike today. And I was like, I wonder if he's under the weather. I should DM Mike. I'd reach out. I didn't, of course. And then pod. Here we are.
It's the Mike Farrell Sports Enterprise is really, honestly, it's a circus with all clowns, and I'm the head clown.
I heard you wanted editors though, story editors ideas. You want me to help you out? I'll edit something for you.
My editor in chief, Matt Perkins, who is amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. He is drowning. We had last week alone, he did 54 articles that he edited, and that's not all the articles we did. We probably did over 100 on the website last week. So what I'm doing is I'm going to scale down the content to make it more quality rather than quantity. And I think that's going to help traffic and people coming back because they're going to read good stuff. But I need editors. I got everybody who wants to write. I got social media guys that rotate in and out and quit after a week and all that stuff. I can write. I need recruiting guys, but I need editors more important than that. So people? Now I
don't know anybody, but
gotta be an intern. Shit, I can't. I have no money. I'm close to selling my Dan Marino. Gorgeous.
Wow.
I'm never gonna sell. I'm kidding. I'm not poor, but I don't have any money to pay anybody because right now I'm a startup. I'm a complete startup.
Yeah.
People who work for free, like really hard every day?
Very few.
How about you?
It's possible.
You have a real job, right?
I do.
Does it pay well?
I have like 2 real jobs. Yeah. It's not bad.
So you said you have like breaks here and there, right?
Yeah, I've got a flexible schedule. I kind of make my own schedule my own meetings. I can move some stuff around. I'm loosely in charge of a bunch of stuff. So if I say we're not meeting till 2, we're not meeting till 2, right? So I've got some flexibility.
What would possibly be the upside for you at all?
To do what?
To help me being an editor.
We should tackle that. Yeah. Because here's what I believe in you, Mike. I think you're gonna be big one day. I just have this feeling about you.
Well,
you're gonna be big one day.
I believe that too.
Not fat bastard big, maybe even regular big. And Mike Farrell Sports is going to take off. And you're going to be like, you know what? I'm about to start my own network here. I need the brightest people around me. I'm going to give that one guy, whatever his name was, a call and just say job. And that's it. And that's what I'm expecting from you down the road. So that's maybe the hook for me.
Well, it is a good hook. I mean, there are a few people that have been with me since the start that have been very, very helpful, who never complain, always work hard, who go above and beyond because you started doing those thumbnails, which is above and beyond to me. And then you start doing the clips, and then it helps with the. So if it's somebody that I don't have to babysit or manage, who volunteered for this, who's really been there since the beginning, when I do get huge, not fat, but huge, it's going to be, you just wait for that text that says job.
Okay. I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna pin you to the top. You can put like I'm gonna pin Mike Farrell to the top of my text string and just wait
Yeah.
every day for job.
And then every
And
day
I'm sure
you get pod and you'll be like, damn it.
actually I'll probably get pod, clips, and then maybe light, because I feel like light may be the new one that you're gonna work on.
Light is a problem. It's a real problem. So, but I appreciate all this. I think, nobody's lasted this long to listen to all of this. So it's just me and you talking. This is kind of a production meeting. There's not one person that's going to listen to this till the end. But I think we've really fleshed some stuff out. So if you do have editorial help for me, whether it's you or somebody else, I can use it because Matt is drowning in content. And that's the funny thing. We put up so much stuff on my website. I did an SEO evaluation. We almost do too much stuff. Like search engine optimization can't figure us out. So I'm going to really, really narrow the focus and make things a lot better and easier for everybody.
Now, are you looking for long form pieces? You want short, quick stories? What's the vision of MikeFarrellSports.com?
So I'm going to start doing more opinion stuff. I did the opinion piece yesterday on Frost and Chryst and Tucker and how ridiculous the Big Ten is and these decisions that are being made based on future TV money. But mostly quick hitters, because I think people, have an average attention span of like 32 seconds per article, and then they'll last a minute if it's something that intrigues them. So, fact or fiction is quick. 3-point stance is a little verbose. Opinion articles are a little bit verbose, but just, my rankings of players, my rankings of high school prospects, just little hitters like that are pretty much what it is. And, again, it's carte blanche. It's not just an editor. I need someone who's going to come up with story ideas, who's going to want to brainstorm about story ideas in one word text back and forth. And then, wants to write and build their name, but also help on the back end side where there's no glory at all, because that's where we really need the help. Is
your data plan by the word? It just hit me. Maybe you're a startup. You said that, you're trying to control costs. Maybe you're paying by the word. I never thought of that. I feel bad now that I hadn't considered that.
No. It's not by the word. I will tell you though. Yeah, I did say pod. Let me see what I do.
If you go through our text string, I mean, if I get more than 4 words, it's typically something bad has happened.
I am right now. Okay, so September 8th, I said, want a pod tonight, ?
Yeah.
That changed into Monday of last week, pod schedule with a question mark.
Yeah.
And this today was pod.
Yeah. Yeah. Now here's my text from Mike. Ready? It sucks. I shall schedule today. Let's do 2:40. This is the longest one in a while. Can you do some clips when you can? You demand. What's the schedule? Want to do 5:30? Want to do 4:15? Pod schedule. How about now? Let's do 6. Can you clip? Oh, bleep, forgot. Thank you. Pod. How's 5:30? That's efficient. And he's a writer, ladies and gentlemen. He's a writer. He's an accomplished writer. Mike Farrell does it all.
That's how I text everybody. And that's probably why people think I'm an absolute dick. They probably do, because I'm just like very blunt and very, I send my my social media guys, and I just send them like 2 words, post this. And they're probably all like, you're a jerk. You're such an ass. Like, why are you so mean? Yeah. I think it's just I don't like texting because I do it all the time. And B, I don't want to burn the extra calories by typing extra words because I'm trying to stay big. I think that's it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know what? Maybe just get him a holiday card and you call it good.
I've done things for them in the past.
There
yes.
You go. Holiday cards.
My public perception is that of a complete dickhead, but I am far from it. But I don't have the energy to change my public persona. Does that make sense?
It does.
I don't want to
delve into that.
There's no winning anybody over. I am who I am. This is what you're going to get. So whatever.
We should delve into that. Maybe with David Pollock, we can break that down.
Yeah, I'm going to start DMing guys, see if they'll come on. So all of this is great. We've done a good job. We'll see how many people listen to this. We'll see if subscribers add so they can get like a phone call or become a guest on this show. I could start promoting that. I think this is it. This is the one that's going to send us off into the stratosphere.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being a part of history then. And tune in next week to watch all of this never come true. We will talk to you then. Have a great week.
See you.